My name is Merle, and for 10 years I planned the perfect crime. Not murder, something worse. I stole a family from a man who had already stolen mine. He took everything. The house, the money, the dog. But worst of all, he took my children. His children, the ones I raised, the ones he made forget me. For 8 years, I watched him build a new life with a new wife and a new baby. He was happy. I was nothing, a ghost, invisible. But ghosts don't forget, and neither do mothers. I didn't want revenge, not really. I wanted what was mine. Those children were mine long before they were his, and I was going to get them back. It took 2 years to become her best friend. 2 years of listening, of waiting, of being the shoulder she cried on. She never knew I was the woman he destroyed. She told me everything. About his neglect, his control, his coldness. She thought I was saving her. She had no idea I was saving myself. This is not a story about hate. This is a story about a mother's love. About how far one woman will go to reclaim the children stolen from her. About the moment everything changed. My name is Merle, and this is what I did to get my family back. For the last 10 years, my life has been a slow, quiet kind of hell. It didn't start that way, of course. It started with a kiss on a sun-drenched dock in Michigan, with a man named Vance who had a smile that could charm the birds from the trees. It ended with me, standing in the hallway of a courthouse, holding a piece of paper that said I had nothing. Nothing, the house, the savings, the summer cabin, even the custody of our dog, a golden retriever named Gus. Vance took it all. His lawyers were sharks, and mine was a guppy who was terrified of the deep end. They painted me as unstable, as a woman who couldn't manage a household budget, as someone who had wasted our marital assets on frivolous things. It was all lies, expertly crafted and delivered with a sympathetic smile to the judge. The worst part, the part that truly broke me, was the kids. Not our children, because we didn't have any. I'm talking about his children, from his first marriage. Chloe and Caleb, I had raised those kids. I had helped them with their homework, nursed them through the flu, cheered at their school plays and soccer games. For 10 years, I was their mother in every way that mattered. Their real mother lived in California and sent birthday cards when she remembered. I was the one who made their Halloween costumes and packed their lunches. And in the divorce, Vance poisoned them against me. He told them I didn't love them, that I was just after his money. By the end, they wouldn't even look at me in the courtroom. Chloe, who I taught how to braid her hair, stared straight ahead with a face made of stone. Caleb, my little buddy who loved to build forts in the backyard, wouldn't even take the stuffed bear I'd brought for him. That was the moment the seed was planted. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a cold, deep freeze kind of hurt that went right to the bone. It was the moment I stopped being Merle, the nice wife and stepmom, and started becoming someone else. Someone with a long memory. For 8 years, I drifted. I took a small apartment in a different city. I worked jobs that paid the bills but meant nothing. I watched from a distance as Vance's life went on without me. I saw the wedding announcement in a local paper I still stupidly subscribed to. He'd married a woman named Brianna, a sleek, polished blonde 15 years younger than me. I saw the photos of their lavish honeymoon. I saw the birth announcements for their new baby, a little girl they named Skye. I saw my old house, with its fresh coat of paint and new landscaping, featured in a local lifestyle blog. It was a life that was supposed to be mine, lived by other people. The quiet hell wasn't the poverty or the loneliness. It was the injustice. It was knowing that the man who had broken me was thriving. It was the phantom pains of a family I'd lost. I'd be standing in the grocery store and see a box of the silly-shaped pasta Caleb used to love, and my chest would ache for an hour. I'd hear a Taylor Swift song on the radio, the one Chloe and I used to blast while we cleaned the house on Saturdays, and I'd have to pull my car over. Vance hadn't just taken my assets. He had stolen my history, my identity as a mother, my future. Then, one Tuesday night, the idea came to me. I was flipping channels, half watching some true crime documentary about a con artist, a woman who had reinvented herself and taken a family for millions. And I just sat there, frozen, as the narrator described her methods. It was like a key turning in a lock. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. I was focused. Vance had used the system, used lies and manipulation, to take everything from me. He had weaponized the love I had for his children. It was time for me to do the same. Not to hurt him, not in the way he'd hurt me, but to take back what was mine, my family. It took me a year to plan. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted reclamation. I wanted my children back, and to get them, I had to dismantle the life Vance had built on the ruins of mine. I started by changing my name, nothing dramatic. I just went back to my maiden name, Muriel Collins. I moved to a town about 45 minutes from them, close enough to be in their orbit, but far enough to avoid accidental run-ins. I got a job as a receptionist at a local dental practice. It was perfect. Boring, invisible, I was no one, but becoming no one took work. I had to erase myself completely. I cut off all contact with my old friends and family, explaining that I needed a fresh start and would reach out when I was ready. I closed my social media accounts. I got a new phone number, a new email address, a new library card. I even changed the way I dressed, trading my comfortable, slightly bohemian style for bland, neutral clothing that would never draw a second glance. I practiced walking differently, with smaller steps and lowered eyes. I practiced speaking in a softer, more agreeable tone. I became a ghost, haunting the edges of my own life. The planning itself was meticulous. I created a spreadsheet, because that's the kind of person I am, or at least, the kind of person I had become. I logged everything I could learn about Vance's new family from public records and social media. I noted Brianna's schedule, as much as I could glean from her posts. Her yoga classes on Tuesday mornings, her grocery shopping on Thursday afternoons, her book club on the first Wednesday of every month. I learned that Chloe attended the local high school and was on the soccer team. I learned that Caleb was in middle school and that his art teacher had posted about his talent on the school's website. I learned that Skye went to a daycare called Little Sprouts and that Brianna struggled with drop-offs, often arriving frazzled and late. I watched them. I learned their routines. Vance, now a partner at his law firm, was busier than ever. Brianna, the perfect new wife, was struggling. I could see it in the way her shoulders slumped when she loaded the groceries into their SUV, in the tight line of her mouth when she corralled a tantruming toddler, Skye. The Instagram perfect life was a performance. Behind the scenes, she was overwhelmed. Chloe was 16, a sophomore in high school. She was beautiful, with the same sharp cheekbones as her father, but her eyes held a wariness that hadn't been there when she was 9. Caleb was 14, all long limbs and awkwardness, and he walked with his head down, shoulders hunched, as if trying to make himself smaller. The key, I knew, was Brianna. She was the fulcrum. If I could become her friend, I could get close. Not to hurt her. She was innocent in all this, but to show her the cracks in her perfect life, to make her see the real Vance. My opportunity came at the local library. I had started volunteering there, helping with the children's reading program. It was a calculated move. I knew Brianna brought Skye to Story Hour sometimes. I had seen it in a photo she posted months ago. So I waited, week after week, until one rainy Saturday, she came rushing in, a frazzled Skye on her hip, desperate for the children's story hour to start so she could have 5 minutes of peace. She was soaked, her mascara was slightly smudged, and she looked utterly defeated. I approached her with a warm, understanding smile. "Tough morning?" I asked, my voice gentle. She let out a shaky, humorless laugh. "You have no idea." "I'm Muriel," I said, extending a hand. "I help out with the story time. Skye will love it. Miss Patty does voices for all the animals. Why don't you go grab a coffee from the machine in the lobby? Sit down for a few minutes. I'll keep an eye on her." The look of pure, unadulterated gratitude on her face was my first victory. It was a tiny crack, but it was a start. And that was how it began. I became Brianna's lifeline. We started having coffee after story time. I was a sympathetic ear, a non-judgmental friend. I listened to her complain about the pressure of being a lawyer's wife, about the endless social obligations, about how Vance was never home, and when he was on his phone or too tired to engage. I listened to her worry about Chloe, who was pulling away and getting in with a fast crowd, and about Caleb, who was so quiet and spent all his time in his room playing video games. "He was so different with his first wife's kids," Brianna said one day, stirring her latte absently. "Vance, I mean, he was so involved, or so he says. He makes me feel like I'm failing because I'm struggling with just one." I felt a cold spike of anger at his manipulation, even now. But I kept my face a mask of sympathy. Every family is different, I said softly. And from what you've told me, you're doing it all mostly on your own. That's not failing. That's superhuman. I met Chloe next. I was at Brianna's house, helping her organize a closet, something I'd become very good at, being the helpful friend, when Chloe slammed through the back door, threw her keys on the counter, and stomped towards the stairs without a word. Her eyes were ringed with too much black eyeliner, and she had a new, small tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve. "Chloe, wait," Brianna called out, her voice strained. "We have a guest. Can you at least say hello?" Chloe stopped, turned, and gave me a flat, unimpressed look. It was the same look she'd given me in the courtroom 8 years ago. My heart lurched. "Hi," she said, the word devoid of any warmth. "Hi, Chloe," I said, matching her tone with gentle neutrality. "I'm Merle. Your mom and I are just tackling the hall closet. It's a beast." She just shrugged and disappeared up the stairs. Brianna sighed. "See, that's what I'm dealing with." I didn't push. Patience was my greatest weapon. I just kept showing up. I brought over a casserole on a night Brianna mentioned Vance was working late. I offered to watch Skye so Brianna could go to Chloe's parent-teacher conference alone. I became a fixture, the quiet, dependable friend who was always there. Caleb was the hardest. He was a fortress of teenage angst. He'd grunt in response to questions and avoid eye contact. But I noticed things. I noticed he loved to draw. I saw sketchbooks peeking out of his backpack filled with incredibly detailed, slightly dark fantasy art. One afternoon, when I was over and Brianna was putting Skye down for a nap, I saw him sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over a drawing of a dragon. I didn't say anything at first. I just put a glass of milk and a plate of the cookies I'd brought next to him. He looked up, surprised. "Those are for you," I said, nodding at the cookies. "Your mom said you liked chocolate chip." He mumbled a thank you, his eyes darting back to his drawing. "That's amazing," I said, gesturing to the dragon. "The detail on the scales is incredible. Do you take art at school?" He shrugged. "It's a dumb class." "Well, the teacher is dumb, not the art," I said. "My nephew draws a lot like you. He's always looking for new techniques. There's a great art supply store over in Oak Creek. They have these charcoal pencils that are supposed to be amazing for shading." For the first time, a flicker of interest crossed his face. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. He didn't say anything else, but he didn't have to. I had found the key to his fortress. The months passed. My friendship with Brianna deepened. She confided in me about everything. Her fears that her marriage was failing, her loneliness, her guilt over not being able to connect with Chloe and Caleb the way she wanted to. She told me how Vance would criticize her parenting, how he would compare her unfavorably to his wonderful first wife, a woman named Susan, who he claimed was a natural mother. He never, ever mentioned me. He had erased me from the story entirely. I was the one who picked Skye up from daycare when Brianna had a migraine. I was the one who helped Chloe with a history paper, using the same patient, probing questions I'd used when she was 9. I was the one who bought Caleb his first set of real charcoal pencils for his birthday. A gift that left him speechless and earned me a quick, fierce hug that nearly made me cry. I was becoming their mother again, just in a different form. And the best part was, they had no idea who I really was. But I also started to have doubts. Late at night, alone in my small apartment, I would stare at the ceiling and wonder if I was doing the right thing. Brianna was innocent. Chloe and Caleb were innocent. Skye was an innocent baby. Was I manipulating them just as badly as Vance had manipulated me? Was I any better than him? These thoughts haunted me. One night, I even packed a bag, ready to leave, to disappear again and spare them the inevitable pain of the truth. But then I thought of Chloe's empty eyes, of Caleb's hunched shoulders, of Brianna's exhausted sighs. I thought of the life Vance was giving them, a life of neglect and control and emotional starvation. And I knew that even if my methods were questionable, my goal was pure. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was trying to save them. From him, the first major crack in Vance's world appeared because of Skye. She was 3, a bubbly, curious little girl. She had a terrible ear infection, and Brianna was frantic. Vance was in a meeting and wasn't answering his phone. Brianna called me, sobbing. I drove over immediately, bundled them both into my car, and took them to the emergency room. I stayed with them for 4 hours, holding Brianna's hand, distracting Skye with songs and silly faces. Vance finally showed up after it was all over, looking irritated that he'd had to leave his important dinner. I saw the look that passed between Brianna and me that night. It was a look of solidarity, of shared understanding. She knew, in that moment, who her real partner was, and it wasn't the man who had fathered her child. The next step was more delicate. It was time to start telling the truth in small, digestible pieces. Brianna and I were having a glass of wine on her patio one evening, the kids all occupied inside. "You're so good with them," Brianna said, sighing. "All of them, even Chloe, who hates everyone. It's like you have a secret." I looked into my wine glass, then back at her. "I was a stepmom once," I said quietly. It was the first time I had ever mentioned my past. She sat up, intrigued. "You were? What happened?" I gave a sad, small smile. "It didn't work out. Their father, he turned them against me in the end, took everything. The house, the memories, them. Especially them." I let a single, genuine tear escape and roll down my cheek. "It's the reason I understand, Brianna. I know how hard it is to love someone else's children and feel like you're always on the outside looking in." Her face crumpled with sympathy. She reached across and squeezed my hand. "Oh, Merle, that's awful. I'm so sorry." "It's okay," I said, wiping the tear away. "It was a long time ago, but it's why I love being around your family. It lets me feel like I'm a part of something again." It was the perfect lie, wrapped in an essential truth. From that night on, Brianna trusted me implicitly. I was no longer just a friend, I was a kindred spirit. The confrontation with Chloe happened organically. She came home one night, clearly drunk, and stumbled as she tried to sneak up the stairs. Brianna was already in bed with a headache. I was there, tidying up the kitchen after a late dinner. I caught her arm gently as she swayed. "Whoa there, let's get you some water." She tried to pull away, her eyes full of teenage defiance and shame. "Leave me alone." "I'm not going to tell your mom," I said softly, guiding her to a chair at the kitchen table. "But you need to drink this." I put a large glass of water in front of her. She stared at it, then at me. "Why do you care?" she mumbled, her words slurring slightly. "Because I remember what it's like to be 16 and feel like the whole world is against you," I said. "And because someone should." She drank the water. She started talking. It all came out in a torrent of angry, drunken words. She hated her dad for being absent. She felt like a burden to Brianna. She missed her mom, her real mom, even though she never saw her. And most of all, she stopped, a confused look on her face. "There was someone else," she said, squinting at me. "Before Brianna, my dad's other wife. I can't really remember her face. He told us she was bad, that she didn't love us. But sometimes I get this feeling. Like a warm feeling, and I think maybe it was from her." My heart cracked wide open. She did remember. Somewhere deep down, my little girl remembered me. "What was her name?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Chloe shook her head. "I don't know, Dad won't talk about her. He said she was a gold digger, that she only wanted his money." She looked at me, her eyes pleading for something she couldn't name. "Is it possible to miss someone you don't even remember?" I couldn't answer. I just pulled her into a hug, the first hug I'd given her in nearly 9 years. She was stiff for a second, then she relaxed and leaned into me, just like she used to when she was little and had a bad dream. I held her until she fell asleep, right there at the kitchen table. The next morning, I was gone before anyone woke up. I left a note for Brianna saying I had an early appointment. I couldn't face Chloe. Not yet. The time wasn't right. The final piece clicked into place with Caleb. I found him in the backyard one Saturday, furiously shredding a beautiful drawing. He was crying, tears of pure frustration. I sat down on the grass next to him. "Hey," I said softly, "what's wrong?" "It's stupid," he choked out. "It's all stupid." "It's not stupid if it makes you feel like this." He looked at me, his young face a mess of anger and pain. "My dad says art is a waste of time. He wants me to be a lawyer. He says I need to focus on real skills. He never even looks at my stuff. He just tells me to go do my homework." I looked at the shredded pieces of paper on the grass. I could see the remnants of an incredible, complex cityscape, a fantasy city of towering spires and floating islands. It was brilliant. "Caleb," I said, picking up a piece, "this is genius. This is a real gift. Your father is wrong." "He's so wrong?" I looked him in the eye. "Don't you ever let anyone tell you that the thing that makes your soul happy is a waste of time, not even your dad." His tears stopped. He just stared at me as if I'd given him a glass of water in a desert. You really think so? I know so, I said firmly. And I'm not the only one. I know a woman, an old friend, who runs a small gallery in the city. She's always looking for young talent to mentor. If you want, I could show her some of your work, the stuff you haven't shredded. Hope flickered in his eyes, a tiny, fragile flame. You'd do that? For you, Caleb. I'd do anything. That was the moment I knew my family was whole again. I had them all. Brianna trusted me. Chloe felt safe with me. Caleb believed in me. I was the center of their emotional world, and Vance, the man who had tried to destroy me, was just an outsider in his own home. The final act wasn't about taking money or destroying his career. It was about exposure. It was about forcing him to see what he had lost and what I had reclaimed. I arranged for Caleb to meet my friend, the gallery owner. Her name was Patricia, and she had been a client at the dental office where I worked. We had struck up a friendship over shared stories of difficult ex-husbands, and when I confided in her about Caleb, she had immediately offered to help. She was genuinely blown away by his portfolio and offered him a spot in a prestigious summer program for young artists, a program that could change his life. The catch was, it required a significant financial commitment and a parent's signature. Caleb went to his father. Vance, of course, refused. He called it a waste of money. That night, Caleb came to me devastated. He won't let me, he whispered, his face pale. He said no. I put my arm around him. Don't you worry about a thing, I'll talk to him. The next day, I went to Vance's law office. I didn't call ahead. I just walked in, past the startled receptionist, and opened the door to his plush corner office. He was on the phone, but when he saw me, his face went white. He slowly put the receiver down. Merle, he said, his voice tight. It was the first time he'd spoken my name in nearly a decade. What are you doing here? You can't just barge in. I sat down in the chair across from his desk, crossing my legs calmly. Hello, Vance, you're looking well. Lying seems to agree with you. Get out before I call security, he said, his hand reaching for the phone. You're going to want to hear what I have to say, I said, my voice as smooth as silk. It's about your family. He froze. What about my family? I've become quite close with them, you know. Brianna and I are best friends. She tells me everything. About the dinners you miss, the way you criticize her, how lonely she is. I know all about Chloe's rebellion and how you blame her for it, never once looking at your own role in pushing her away. And I know all about Caleb's art, the art you've crushed under your heel, just like you crushed everything else. A range of emotions flickered across his face. Confusion, fear, and then dawning, horrible understanding. It's been you. The helpful friend, the saint who's been holding my family together. I smiled. It was a cold, satisfied smile. Holding it together? No, Vance. I've been showing them what it looks like when it falls apart. I've been the one they turn to when you fail them, and you fail them constantly. You're so busy being a big-shot lawyer, so busy curating your perfect life, that you forgot to actually live it. He stood up, his fists clenched. You stay away from them, you're crazy. I'll get a restraining order. I'll tell them who you are. I'll tell them you've been manipulating them this whole time. Go ahead, I said, standing up to face him. I was calm, utterly in control. Call Brianna right now. Tell her that her best friend, the one who held her hand in the ER with Skye, the one who listens to her cry, is actually her husband's crazy ex-wife. Tell Chloe that the woman she finally trusts, the one who held her when she was sick with shame, is the gold digger you warned her about. Tell Caleb that the only person who ever believed in his art, the only one who saw his gift, is a manipulative monster. Go ahead, Vance, make those calls, see who they believe, see who they choose. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He knew I was right. He had spent years erasing me, and in doing so, he had given me the perfect cover. They would never believe him. They would think he was trying to control them, to isolate them from their only real support. You took everything from me, I said, my voice low and fierce. You took my home, my security, my name, but worst of all, you took my children. You poisoned them against me, you made them forget me. And I have spent the last 2 years becoming the person they needed, the person they were missing. I didn't destroy you, Vance. I just made myself indispensable to the people you claim to love. And now you get to live with the knowledge that the family you tried so hard to build, the one you built on the ashes of mine, is mine. It always was, and it always will be. I turned and walked out of his office, leaving him standing there, speechless and defeated. The victory wasn't in his face, though that was satisfying. The victory was waiting for me at home, not my little apartment. Their home, I drove straight there. Brianna was in the kitchen making dinner. Skye was playing with blocks on the floor. Chloe was doing homework at the table, and Caleb was on the couch, sketching. They all looked up as I came in. "Merle!" Skye shrieked, running to give me a hug. Brianna smiled. "You're just in time. Stay for dinner." Chloe gave me a small, genuine smile. "Hey!" Caleb held up his sketchpad. "Look what I started. It's for that summer program application." I walked into the kitchen, my family gathered around me, and for the first time in 10 years, I was home. The revenge wasn't in the pain I caused Vance. It was in the love I had reclaimed. He had tried to erase me, but in the end, he was the one who had been written out of the story. I was back where I belonged, not as a stepmother or a wife, but as the heart of a family that was and always would be mine. But the story didn't end there. That would be too simple. Vance, I soon learned, was not the kind of man to accept defeat quietly. The confrontation in his office had shaken him, but it had also awakened something dangerous. A man like Vance, who had spent his entire life manipulating systems and people to get what he wanted, was not about to let a woman he had already beaten once take everything from him. The war, it turned out, was just beginning. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. I was at the house, helping Skye with a puzzle, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it and felt my blood run cold. It was a photograph of me, taken years ago, standing in front of my old house with Chloe and Caleb. They were just little kids then, Chloe with pigtails and missing front teeth, Caleb clutching a plastic dinosaur. The three of us were laughing at something, I couldn't remember what. Below the photo was a single line of text. "I haven't forgotten either." I excused myself to the bathroom, where I sat on the edge of the tub and tried to steady my breathing. He was playing games. He was trying to rattle me. I deleted the message and went back to the puzzle, but my hands were shaking as I fitted the pieces together. Over the next few weeks, the attacks escalated. Vance started coming home early, inserting himself into family moments I had come to cherish. He would sit through dinner, making pointed comments about how nice it was to have family time without outside interruptions. He began questioning the kids about their days, about who they were spending time with, about what they talked about with me. Chloe, who had grown to despise his controlling nature, would roll her eyes and retreat to her room. Caleb would just shrug and mumble noncommittal answers, but I could see the tension building, like the pressure before a storm. Brianna noticed it too. One evening, after Vance had gone to his home office to work, she pulled me aside. "He's been asking about you," she said, her voice low and worried. "Where you came from, how we met, what we talk about. It's weird, Merle. He's never shown any interest in my friends before." I kept my face neutral. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that we met at the library, that you've been a godsend, that I don't know what I'd do without you." She bit her lip. He got this strange look on his face. I can't describe it, like he was trying to figure something out. "Merle, is everything okay? You seem different lately. On edge." I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to unburden myself of the secret I had been carrying for 2 years. But I couldn't, not yet. The timing had to be perfect. "Everything's fine," I assured her, squeezing her hand. "He's probably just feeling left out. You've been spending a lot of time with me. Maybe he's jealous." She laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Vance, jealous? He's too busy for jealousy. No, this is something else. Just be careful, okay? He can be intense when he wants something." I knew exactly how intense Vance could be. I had been on the receiving end of it for 10 years of marriage and then 8 years of watching from afar. But I wasn't the same woman he had destroyed in that courtroom. I was stronger now, more patient, more focused. And I had something he didn't have, the unwavering trust of his family. The real test came on a Saturday afternoon. I was in the backyard with Caleb, helping him set up his new easel. He had decided he wanted to try painting, and I had surprised him with a beginner's set of acrylics. He was nervously mixing colors on a palette, his tongue poking out in concentration, when Vance appeared on the patio. "Caleb," he called out, his voice carrying that particular tone of authority that made the boys' shoulders tense. "I need to talk to you, inside, now." Caleb looked at me, his eyes wide with fear. I gave him a small nod of encouragement. Go ahead, I'll be right here. He put down his brush and walked slowly towards the house, his head down. I watched them disappear inside, my stomach churning with anxiety. I busied myself cleaning up the paint supplies, trying to stay calm. 10 minutes passed. 20. Finally, the back door opened and Caleb emerged. His face was pale, and he was holding a piece of paper. What happened? I asked, rushing to him. He handed me the paper without a word. It was a printed email. I scanned it quickly, my heart sinking with each line. It was from a private investigator Vance had hired. The email detailed my movements over the past 2 years. My move to the town, my job at the dental practice, my volunteer work at the library, my growing friendship with Brianna. It even had a copy of my lease agreement and my bank statements. The final paragraph was the worst. Subject has no known family in the area and no significant social connections outside of the target household. All evidence points to a calculated and deliberate campaign of infiltration. I looked up at Caleb, my mind racing. He knew. Vance knew who I was, and now Caleb knew too. Is it true? Caleb asked, his voice barely a whisper. Were you his wife? Before Brianna? I opened my mouth to deny it, to spin another lie, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It was the same look he'd had when he was 7 years old and had fallen off his bike, the look of someone who was hurt and needed the truth. Yes, I said, the word feeling like a stone dropping into deep water. It's true, I was married to your father before Brianna for 10 years. He stared at me, his young face a battlefield of emotions. Confusion, anger, hurt, and underneath it all, a desperate need to understand. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you pretend to be someone else? I sat down on the grass, pulling him down next to me. The easel stood forgotten, a silent witness to the moment everything changed. Because your father took me away from you, I said, my voice breaking. He told you lies about me, he made you forget me. When the divorce happened, I lost everything. The house, the money, my whole life. But the worst loss, the one that never stopped hurting, was losing you and Chloe. You were my babies, Caleb, I raised you. I was there for your first day of kindergarten. I held you when you had nightmares. I taught you how to ride that bike you loved so much. And then, one day, you were just gone. You wouldn't look at me. You wouldn't speak to me. Your father made sure of that. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't bother to wipe them away. I didn't come back to hurt anyone. I came back because I couldn't live without you. I needed to be near you, to know you were okay. And then I saw how unhappy you were, how unhappy all of you were, and I wanted to help. I wanted to be the person you could count on, the way I used to be. Caleb was quiet for a long time. He picked at the grass, not looking at me. I sat there, my heart pounding, waiting for him to speak, to judge me, to walk away and never come back. Do you remember? He finally said, his voice so soft I had to lean in to hear. The forts. We used to build them in the living room, with blankets and pillows, and you'd make hot chocolate and we'd pretend we were explorers in a cave. I let out a sob I hadn't known I was holding. I remember. You always wanted the biggest blanket, the one with the stripes. You said it looked like a tiger. He looked up at me then, and in his eyes I saw it, the memory, the recognition. The little boy who had loved me was still in there, buried under years of his father's lies. I thought I dreamed that, he whispered. I thought I made it up. Dad said he said you never cared about us. He said you were just using us to get to him. Your father is a liar, I said, with more force than I intended. He's always been a liar. The only thing I ever wanted was to be your mother, and for 10 years I was. The best 10 years of my life. Caleb was quiet again, processing. Then, slowly, almost hesitantly, he leaned into me, the way he used to when he was little. I wrapped my arm around him and held him tight. What do we do now? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. But whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere. Not again. Not unless you want me to. He shook his head against my shoulder. I don't want you to go. We sat like that for a long time, until the sun began to set and the backyard grew dark. Eventually, Chloe came out looking for us. She stopped when she saw us sitting there, me with my arm around Caleb, both of us with tear-streaked faces. What's going on? She asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. Caleb lifted his head. She's real, he said, his voice thick. The one we couldn't remember. The one Dad told us was bad. She's real, Chloe, and she's here. Chloe looked at me, her eyes narrowing. For a terrifying moment, I saw the same stone-faced girl from the courtroom. Then something shifted in her expression. She walked over slowly and sat down on the grass in front of us. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me everything." And I did. I told them about meeting their father, about falling in love with him and with them. I told them about the years of happiness, the family vacations, the school plays, the quiet nights watching movies together. I told them about the divorce, how it had blindsided me, how Vance had turned them against me. I told them about the 8 years of emptiness, of watching them from afar, of the pain that never went away. And I told them about my plan, my slow, careful campaign to win them back. When I finished, the silence was heavy. Chloe stared at the ground, her jaw tight. Caleb sniffled beside me. "She's not lying," Caleb said quietly. "I remember the forts, Chloe. I remember her making pancakes on Saturdays. I remember." Chloe looked up at me, and there were tears in her eyes, too. "I remember the braiding," she said, her voice cracking. "Sitting on the floor between your knees while you did my hair for picture day. I remember the smell of your shampoo." I told myself it wasn't real. I told myself Dad was right. A tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. But I knew, some part of me always knew. She crawled over and joined us on the grass, and for the first time in nearly a decade, the three of us were together. We held each other and cried, mourning the lost years, celebrating the impossible reunion. The sound of the back door opening shattered the moment. Vance stood on the patio, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him, Brianna hovered uncertainly, Skye in her arms. "Well," Vance said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "isn't this a touching scene? The prodigal stepmother returns." Brianna looked from him to me, confusion and dawning horror on her face. "What is he talking about, Merle? What's going on?" I stood up, my children flanking me on either side. Chloe grabbed my hand. Caleb stood tall beside me, his fear replaced by a new, fierce protectiveness. "Brianna," I said calmly, "my name is Merle Collins, and 10 years ago I was married to your husband." The color drained from her face. She took a step back, clutching Skye tighter. "No, that's not possible. He said he told me his first wife was named Susan. He said she left." "Susan was his first wife," I explained gently. "Their mother." I nodded towards Chloe and Caleb. "I was the second, the one he erased. The one he took everything from, including them." Vance laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Don't listen to her, Brianna. She's a pathological liar. She's been manipulating you from the start. I have proof. I have a private investigator's report." "I have proof too, Dad," Chloe said, her voice ringing with sudden strength. "I have memories, real ones, of her, of us, of a life you tried to steal from us." Caleb nodded. "Me too. She was our mom, our real mom, and you lied about her." Brianna looked at Vance, then at me, then at the children. Her face was a whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, confusion, fear. Skye, sensing the tension, started to whimper. I need to sit down," Brianna whispered. She moved to a patio chair and sank into it, still holding Skye. I wanted to go to her to comfort her, but I knew that wasn't my place. Not now, not yet. Vance stepped forward, pointing a finger at me. "This isn't over. I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never see any of them again. I'll tell the police you're a stalker." Dad, stop," Chloe interrupted, stepping in front of me. "Just stop. For once in your life, stop trying to control everything. You lost. Can't you see that? You lost us a long time ago, and you were too busy being a lawyer to notice. She was the one who was there. She's the one who's always been there." Vance stared at his daughter, his mouth opening and closing. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked truly defeated. Not angry, not plotting, just broken. Brianna stood up slowly, still holding Skye. She walked over to me, her eyes searching my face. "Were you ever really my friend?" she asked, her voice small and wounded. "Or was it all just part of your plan?" I felt a pang of genuine guilt. Brianna had been innocent in all of this. She had been just as much a victim of Vance's manipulations as I had been. "It started as a plan," I admitted honestly. "I won't lie to you, but somewhere along the way it became real. You became my friend. Skye became a joy in my life. The moments we shared, the late-night talks, the laughter, those were real, Brianna. I didn't plan to love you. But I do." She stared at me for a long moment, tears spilling down her cheeks. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I believe you," she whispered. "God help me, I believe you." Vance watched this exchange with mounting horror. "Brianna, you can't be serious. She's been using you. She's been using all of you." "No, Vance," Brianna said, turning to face him. You're the one who's been using us. You used me to create the perfect family image for your career. You used Chloe and Caleb as props. And you used Merle, discarded her, and then erased her from history. I see it now. I've always seen it, I just didn't want to admit it. She walked over and stood with us, on our side of the invisible line that had been drawn in the grass. Chloe and Caleb moved closer to me, and for a moment, we were a unit. Me, my children, and the woman who had become my friend. Skye, sensing the shift, reached out her little hand and patted my cheek. Vance stood alone on the patio, the master of his domain, king of nothing. "Get out," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "All of you, get out of my house." Brianna shook her head. "No, Vance, we're not getting out. This is my house too, and right now I think you're the one who needs to leave." For a moment, I thought he might hit her. His fists clenched, his face reddened, and he took a step forward. But then he looked at the five of us, standing together, and something in him seemed to crumble. He turned and walked back into the house, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't oppressive. It was the silence after a storm, when the wind has died and the rain has stopped, and all that's left is the slow work of cleaning up the damage. Brianna turned to me. "What happens now?" I looked at Chloe, at Caleb, at the woman who had become more than just a pawn in my plan. "Now we figure out how to be a family," I said. "All of us, if that's what everyone wants." Chloe nodded. Caleb nodded. Brianna, after a moment's hesitation, nodded too. Even Skye, not understanding a word, nodded along with everyone else, making us all laugh despite everything. It wasn't easy. The weeks that followed were messy and complicated. Vance tried to fight back, hiring lawyers, making threats, attempting to turn the kids against Brianna the way he had once turned them against me. But it didn't work. Chloe and Caleb were done being manipulated. They testified in court about the emotional abuse they had suffered, about the lies he had told them. Brianna filed for divorce, and this time, she had the best lawyer in town, the one who had once helped Vance destroy me. I recommended him. He was a shark and he was hungry. The divorce was brutal. Vance tried every trick in the book, but Brianna had evidence. She had years of neglected dinners, forgotten birthdays, and emotionally absent weekends. She had the private investigators report that Vance himself had commissioned, which now served as proof of his obsessive and controlling behavior. In the end, she got the house, custody of Skye, and a substantial settlement. The perfect life he had built crumbled around him. But the real victory happened quietly, in small moments. It happened when Chloe came to me for advice about college applications, the way she used to come to me for help with homework. It happened when Caleb had his first small gallery showing, and I stood in the front row, crying with pride. It happened when Skye, who had no memory of a time before me, started calling me Auntie Merle, and then, one day, just Merle, in the same tone the other kids used, full of love and trust. Brianna and I became true friends, not just allies in a war against Vance, but sisters in the truest sense. We raised the kids together, navigated the challenges of teenagers and toddlers, celebrated holidays and birthdays as one messy, unconventional family. Vance tried to stay involved, at least with Skye, but his visits became less and less frequent. He moved to another state, remarried quickly, and started the cycle all over again with a new woman, a new family, a new chance to play the role of the successful, devoted husband and father. We didn't talk about him much. He was a ghost, a memory, a cautionary tale. The kids dealt with their feelings in their own ways. Chloe through therapy and writing, Caleb through his art, Skye through the simple resilience of childhood. Brianna found a new sense of purpose, going back to school to become a family counselor, using her experience to help other women caught in the web of controlling partners. And me? I found peace. Not the loud, triumphant peace of victory, but the quiet, steady peace of belonging. I watched Chloe graduate from high school, her eyes finding mine in the crowd as she walked across the stage. I helped Caleb pack for his summer art program, slipping a $100 bill into his bag when he wasn't looking, the way I used to slip notes into his lunchbox. I braided Skye's hair for her first day of kindergarten, using the same gentle hands I had used on Chloe so many years ago. One evening, about a year after the confrontation in the backyard, I was sitting on the porch with Brianna, watching the kids play in the yard. Skye was chasing fireflies. Caleb was sketching on his pad. Chloe was on her phone, but every few minutes she would look up and smile at something Skye did. "I never thanked you," Brianna said quietly. I looked at her, surprised. "For what? For saving us, for showing me the truth, for," she gestured vaguely at the scene before us. "For all of this." I shook my head. "You don't need to thank me. I did it for selfish reasons. I wanted my family back." "And you got them," she said. "But you also gave me one, a real one, not the performance Vance wanted, but something genuine." She paused, then added, "I know how this started. I know you manipulated me, in a way. But I also know that the woman who held my hand in the ER, who listened to me cry about my marriage, who taught my daughter how to braid her hair, that woman is real. And I'm grateful for her." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "I'm grateful for you too, more than you know." Skye came running up to the porch, her little hands cupped together. "Look, I caught one. I caught a firefly." We leaned in to look, and there, in the cupped darkness of her palms, was a tiny, pulsing light. It flickered on and off, a small beacon in the growing dark. "It's beautiful," Chloe said, coming over to look. Caleb looked up from his sketch. "You should let it go," he said gently. "It's not meant to be kept." Skye thought about it for a moment, then opened her hands. The firefly hovered for a second, then flew off into the night, joining the others in their silent, glowing dance. We sat there together, watching the fireflies, and I thought about the long road that had brought me here. The years of pain, the year of planning, the 2 years of careful maneuvering. It had all been worth it, not for the revenge, but for this. For the simple, priceless gift of being surrounded by people I loved, who loved me back. Vance had tried to take everything from me. He had succeeded for a time. But in the end, he had lost everything, and I had gained back more than I had ever dreamed possible. Not a house or a bank account or a legal victory. A family. Messy, complicated, unconventional, but real. And real, I had learned, was the only thing that mattered. My name is Merle, and this is my story. It's not a story of hatred or destruction, though those things played their part. It's a story of patience, of love, of the unbreakable bonds that tie a mother to her children, no matter how many years or lies come between them. It's a story of a family, lost and found, broken and healed. It's a story of revenge, yes, but more than that, it's a story of redemption. Mine and theirs, and even, in a strange way, his. Because in losing everything, Vance was forced to see himself clearly for the first time. Whether he learned anything from it, I'll never know. And frankly, I don't care. I have everything I need right here, on this porch, on this summer night, surrounded by fireflies and laughter and love. The past is behind me. The future is unwrit. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I am exactly where I belong. Home.